just a little juice smoothie, blueberry train, instead of the tum tum.
He's got some tummy troubles.
Yeah, I just said tum tum on the podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to the R&R Catcast, a fan-based podcast focusing on Montana State athletics. We're two dudes named Ryan from the state of Washington talking about our dear Montana State. We hope you enjoy.
Welcome back, Bobcat fans. The Cats fossilized the Great Dane season and now prepare to press into the Governors of the Austin Peay. Thorny, how you doing, buddy?
Yep, their national title hopes went the way of the dinosaur, I guess.
Love that.
All right. I don't know if anyone knows what we're talking about, but we don't really need to go into it. But yeah, if you get the joke, yeah. Well, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Oh, I couldn't be better. It's been a great week for me. I'm feeling good. It was a great Bobcat victory, great weekend. It's just a good Monday night.
Nice. Yeah, I'm a little under the weather over here, feeling kind of sick, but feeling pretty good about the Bobcats.
All right, well, let's get into it. Just a little show outline to start. We're going to lead off with what we're drinking. We're going to go into the news. We'll talk about some FCS playoff results, and then maybe a little bit about Bo Baldwin. We're going to do a game recap against Albany, and then we'll get into a little game preview against our upcoming opponent, Austin Peay. And then on the back end, we'll come out of it with some buy or sell and some golden koozie questions.
Sounds good.
Pretty standard.
Pretty standard, but here we are in the quarterfinals. Not standard. Exciting.
When was the last time we were in the quarterfinals?
We were just talking about that before we started recording. It must have been 2011 or 12. Sam Houston stayed at home because I think that was the second. The rematch was in Bozeman, right?
You know what? Now that you mentioned it, I clearly remember that night. I was super excited for it. I was living in Great Falls at the time. It was a cold night. Obviously, it was middle of December. I was super jacked because it was on ESPN2. I was like set for prime time, and the lights come on, the cameras panned over the crowd. We looked great, and then Sam Houston State just went on a tear and just dismantled us. I think they had like a brother combo on that team, and I can't remember their names obviously, but they just dominated us, and I just felt bad for Denarius McGee, and I just remember being so upset because we hadn't been in that position for so long, and then we just crumbled in the spotlight. It was just like so indicative of Rob Ash teams, and I was just so mad. And I was, it's just till this day such a sour taste.
The only good thing that came out of that game, I remember specifically, that was like Alex Singleton's kind of breakout game because I think Jody Owens may have been hurt, so Singleton was filling in for him. It was the first time we really got to see him. So that was like the only bright spot.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm mentally ready to move on from that one. Thanks for bringing that one up again.
Yep. You kind of did it, really.
Yeah, I guess I asked. All right. Hey, Thorny, why don't you tell us about the beer you're drinking tonight?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, I am under the weather, so I'm actually not drinking a beer. But I did not want to break my tradition of picking drinks that based on their names. So I'm actually drinking a Naked Blue Machine because the Bobcats are just a machine right now. Blue, Bobcat Blue. It's the best I could come up with not drinking a beer.
Are those smoothies?
Yep. Just a little juice smoothie, blueberry train, instead of the tum tum.
He's got some tummy troubles.
Yeah, I just said tum tum on the podcast. We're both parents. These things happen.
All right, man. Well, I hope that tastes good over there.
It's delicious.
Nice, man. All right, I have a Mac and Jack's Log Boom Pale Ale. My wife bought it. I think she bought it just based off of how the can looked. It's flashy. It's blue. It's I don't know. It's a good looking can, but yeah, it's a good pale ale. It's pretty standard. It's nothing impressive. When you think of Mac and Jack's, I mean, you got to think of the African Amber, which is like an amazing beer, one of my top favorite beers. But I haven't seen it in the can, so this is something new.
Nice. That sounds good. And I do love the amber Mac and Jack makes. Delicious.
Oh man, yeah, it's unrivaled in the ambers. It's like a hazy amber. It's awesome. All right, man. let's move into the news. How about you recap some of the FCS games that went down last Saturday?
Yeah, the Bobcats weren't the only Big Sky team. In fact, all 4 teams obviously were seeded playing in the second round. Weber State had to kind of come back against Kennesaw State, the Owls, who actually beat the Bobcats a few years ago. Weber State advanced. The Grizzlies destroyed Southeastern Louisiana. I don't know if it's Southeast or Southeastern, whatever. 78-23. The whooping to get themselves a rematch with Weber State in Ogden. And of course, the game that impacted the Bobcats the most, Austin Peay Governors, as you say, 42-28 over the Sac State Hornets, making their first playoff appearance in history. I guess so was Austin Peay. So a couple of newbies duking it out in the crappy weather down in Sacramento, and Austin Peay came out victorious.
That has to be the most surprising win of the weekend for me. The one that was most interesting was Weber State and Kennesaw State. Before that game started, I thought that was just going to be a slugfest. It turned out to be just that, 26-20. Kennesaw State with the triple option. I mean, Kennesaw State just seems like a team I would not want to play. They just seem kind of like that nasty, kind of like beat you up kind of team, kind of like maybe like the Cats are. So I think that just Weber State was just licking its chops going, that's the same kind of team we are. Now Weber State was down 17-0 at one point in that game, come back. And now they got this set up with the rematch with the Grizz. Who do you think is going to win that game?
Well, I don't know who's going to win, but I know that if you're going to have a rematch with an opponent in the playoffs, I'd almost rather have played a team that you lost to, because I think they're, at least for the Bobcats, the revenge angle, underdog angle is kind of something that motivates us. Going on the road against a team that you beat down in Missoula is going to, I think it's going to be a pretty tall task for the Grizz to replicate that. It's going to be a much closer game this time around.
Oh, yeah. And I just like the Grizz hung 78 on Southeastern Louisiana. That's just ridiculous. Apparently, like, Coulter was talking about it today on his show on ESPN 102.9 Missoula. He was saying that Southeastern Louisiana did not make any adjustments, and like the Grizz just pounded them for it. And it was just like, I don't know, like hanging 78 on a team. Like, seriously, like why? Like, why do you have to go there? But whatever. So, but
man, it's the playoffs. If you don't stop someone in the playoffs, it's your own fault. That's all I can say.
Well, that's a good point, but I mean, if Weber is looking at the Grizz again, they got to be looking at our tape. Like, they got to be looking at the things Montana State did in order to, put the whooping on the Grizz and try to emulate some of those tactics we used.
Yeah, that's a good time to segue into a Golden Koozie question, since you brought that up. I think Corey on the Bobcat Nation, I can't remember his handle, the WTF Barbecue Grizz or whatever. Corey, I'm not looking at the question right now. But it was along the lines of, do you think the Big Sky coaches call each other up for help in the postseason? Do you think like Jay Hill called up Jeff Choate and saying, hey, how did you guys do this? What do you think about that? Do you think coaches actually kind of collude with each other?
I have no clue, honestly. Like, my gut instinct would be say like yes, but then at the same time, Jeff Choate and Jay Hill are still in it, So, but I know they're buddies, so my gut's gonna say yes on that.
Yeah, his example was like if Troy Taylor be willing to provide some insight to Jeff Choate on what he just saw in the game, or his scout, like the scouting, that he had already done on Austin Peay. It's a good question. I had no idea on the answer on that. I would imagine there certainly are some phone calls and some tips shared here and there, but I don't know how big it is. But I'd say, yeah, I would say they help each other out.
Do you think anybody's calling Bobby Houck?
I know Jeff Choate certainly isn't. I don't know if anyone else is.
I can't stand Bobby Houck. Any jab I can get at that guy, I feel good about.
He said he was going to post the same question on eGriz, so I'm curious to see what they think about that. Thanks for the question, Corey. That's one Golden Koozie question. We got several to get through today, so one
nice
down.
Job. All right. Hey, some news came out today that Bo Baldwin, former Eastern Washington head coach, is now going to be the head coach over at Cal Poly.
Has that been confirmed anywhere except for that Football Scoop website yet?
No, that's total conjecture.
So yeah, it's I mean that site's usually pretty on the point, but not right all the time. So that I will keep this short on this discussion here because it's not official yet. But that would be a huge victory for Cal Poly, and I think Bo Baldwin would obviously ditch the triple option. And Cal Poly does have some recruiting advantages that they need to capitalize on, and I think that Cal Poly will be a legitimate team in like 2 or 3 years, real fast under Bo Baldwin, if that is true.
The Big Sky is just shaping up to have these elite level coaches just stay around, and it's really cool to see.
It's like you can't get out of the Big Sky. Like if you're a successful Big Sky coach, eventually you'll be back at some point. Keeps pulling you back in because somebody was talking about it, and I can't remember who now, but there's just not a whole lot of coaching opportunities out west. So if you want to stay out west, like what else are you going to do? There's even FBS, FCS teams. There's just not a lot west of like the Mississippi. Everything is back east. So if you want to stay out here, it's like the Mountain West or Big Sky. Like what else is there? The Pac-12 if you're lucky.
Well, in all honesty, what's more exciting to coach in, the Mountain West or the Big Sky?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer. Probably Mountain West, if I was going to be completely honest.
Yeah, see, I would have to disagree with you on that. I don't feel like the Mountain West has the level of competition that is just bred within the Big Sky. Yeah, their talent might be a little bit better, but what are you really playing for in the Mountain West? Like an off chance of maybe getting, I mean, what kind of bowls do you qualify for in the Mountain West?
Yeah, but you don't have to travel to Cedar City, Utah and play in front of 3,000 people.
That's a good point. I mean,
you're
the Big
playing
Sky
for
does
more,
have
but the path to get to that more is pretty littered with programs that really don't care about football and no one shows up for the games.
So I think for Bo Baldwin, just kind of close this up, like his offense over at Cal has not been great. They've been pretty scrutinized about having a pretty bad offense, but pretty stellar defense. I bet you like the writing on the wall for Bo is like, he wants to be a head coach. Well, he's got to be back at the Big Sky in order to make that happen because his chance at moving up in the Power 5 conference just didn't happen for him.
Yeah, I haven't followed his career too much, honestly. So makes sense though. That'd make perfect sense making a coaching change before maybe he's changed.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure he's going to have some success at Cal Poly that just makes him one more tough team in the conference for us.
For sure.
All right. Hey, did you catch the presser today?
Not all that much of it, so I'm going to have to defer to you on that one.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like Jeff Choate's just money right now. Everything he's saying to me is just gold. And, I'm a big fan of Jeff Choate, so that comes across as kind of a homerism right there. But he just seems like he's in his element. He's in his fourth year at Montana State, and now his system is in place, as he talked about in the presser today. The tenets of his program are taking root, and the fruit is being, coming in front of us right now. And so he just seems very comfortable. His just seems very confident, and I just love his answers. He's very articulate. He's very generous with his time, and they're just really fun to watch for me.
Nice, yeah. I got that sense of the few minutes I did catch, but he just seems like he's just having a good time out there and got his team ready to play, and they're playing hard and playing for him.
Did anything jump out to you?
No, I'm not in the small amount of time. How about you?
Yeah, that's just a couple things. One, I can't remember who the reporter was, but they asked him about the Austin Peay Sac State game, if he was surprised, and he kind of paused, and then he had a little smirk come over his face, and he said, well, I guess when it comes down to, in my opinion, is who is most excited to play. And there was one more team on that field that was more excited to play than the other. And so it was kind of a little put down to Sac State right there, and a little, tip of the cap to Austin Peay.
I did hear him talk about like the team that's like hungry, is gonna win right now in the playoffs. And Austin Peay looks hungry. I hope the Bobcats are hungry. But I watched that Sac State Austin Peay game, and Sac State did not look fired up or hungry. They just looked lost. It was pretty strange.
Yeah, and he's got a good mindset. He did say exactly what you just said. He said there's satisfied teams and there's hungry teams. And he went on to talk just a little bit about how the Bobcats need to be the hungry team, and that's something that's just a big message he's putting out to his guys right now.
All right. Well, shall we get into the recap of the game we're here to talk about? Albany Great Danes. Trying to say it right now. Albany.
Bunny. Go for it.
All right. Well, 47-21, and not even nearly as close as that score would indicate, as the Bobcats cruised to a 47-7 score before letting Albany score 14 points in the fourth quarter. And I believe the last touchdown was against our third stringers. I know the second one was still against the starters. But if I had told, like, I had faith in the Bobcats to win this game, but if you would have told me that Tucker Rovig would have more passing yards, have a better passer rating, better stats, better everything than Jeff Undercuffler, I'm not sure I would have bought that. As Tucker Rovig finished with 279 yards on 24 of 30 attempts for 3 touchdowns. And honestly, if Willie Patterson had dropped an easy like 25-yarder, he'd have gone over 300 on that. So a pretty darn good day, as the Bobcats have 28 first downs to Albany's 19. Bobcats right at around 50% on third down, which for us that's good. 50% is good, as we hold another team to a terrible rating, 2 of 12 for Albany on their third downs. Outgained them of 483 to 333. The rushing was 203 to 60, just 60 rushing yards for Albany. We'll get into the rushing stats for the Bobcats, which were, Albany did a pretty good job defending it. And I want to know if that's a problem with our rushing offense or credit to the Albany defense. We'll get into that. Albany was penalized 7 times for 80 yards. We got 5 ourselves. That was kind of a sloppy game a little bit for Albany in particular. And of course, the 2 interceptions brought down by our man, Damian Washington, and just the 1 fumble for Logan Jones. And the Bobcats had just about 34 minutes time of possession to 26. So pretty dominant victory in this late in the season against a quality team in the playoffs. Like, this isn't like Southern Utah we're beating 47-21. So it's a pretty dominant victory. And the stats laid it out. If you look at the stats, there's really no single area where you thought Albany should have won this game, and they did not.
Tom Stuber at 88 Tomcat on Twitter put out a tweet. He said MSU defense shut out Albany over the next 50 minutes and 8 seconds. That is after we they scored the first touchdown. They only allowed just 103 yards on 43 plays, an average of 2.4 yards per play between the first and second Albany scores. During that time, the offense and special teams scored 47 unanswered points.
Just impressive.
Yeah, we dominated.
It's just insane. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Like, and their touchdown was an amazing play. And that's the only thing Albany had going for them all day, was lobbing it up to Juwan Green, hoping he makes the catch over Tyrell Thomas, who had excellent coverage. I want to say that first and foremost. Thomas got burned, but only because he's just given up too much height. He was right there on all of those. And I think Juwan Green had stick him on his hands because they just looked like he just didn't even bounce off his hands. But that was their first touchdown, kind of in a double coverage. Juwan Green kind of goes up and gets it, lands on his feet. Bobcats take each other out and cruises in the end zone. But really, after that, pretty much nothing going for Albany all the way until the fourth quarter, as Tom Stuber clearly calculated.
The game just felt a little bit different, didn't it? I mean, with the proliferation of Tucker Rovig passing for almost 300 yards and our rushing attack not being as prolific, it just felt different to me.
It did. And so might as well get into that question I kind of posed. Bobcats did struggle to run the ball a little bit as far as the Bobcats are concerned. 203 yards on 4.6 yards per carry. It's a good day in the office, all right? Like, that's, most teams are going to be stoked with that kind of production. But for the Bobcats, that's, we're used to being in the mid fives for yards per carry. So they did hold us. And I think Isaiah Fonzie, did not have that many yards. He had 16 carries for just 39 yards along the 12. So he was pretty limited. So what do you think? What do you think presented such problems for the Bobcats ground game? And do you think it was anything that Albany did or scheme wise, or do you think they just like physically were able to control the line of scrimmage?
I don't know too much about the schematics of football to really get into that answer too deep. One thing that came to mind was we got in love with the Travis Johnson +1 run game. I mean, he hit that touchdown right off the bat where he scampered around the end for, it was like 54 yards or something like that. And then Travis Johnson never gave it up again, and he was just getting smoked. And that's when I was texting you. I was like, man, this is hot garbage, because we became predictable like there in the second quarter. And I was just getting frustrated because we had like a two series in there that where we just went 3 and out back to back, and we weren't doing anything. And so I think we got a little bit predictable. So they were keen up on our runs, but I think that's basically all they really wanted to do is just stop the run on us. And then it kind of begs the question too, like, we weren't doing any of our fly sweeps the last couple games that we saw. Like, where was Tyrone Marshall? That still hasn't been answered to me. We didn't press the edges. We were always just trying to go up the middle. So, I mean, I think Logan Jones had a couple of them on the outside, but they closed that off pretty good against us, and we just had a hard time running the ball.
I noticed, kind of rewatched the game today since I was sick at home. I had some time. I rewatched it, and there just seemed to be an Albany defender just waiting just beyond the line of scrimmage at all times. Like in the Grizz game, it seemed like I mentioned during the Grizz review podcast, the recap podcast, how it seemed like the Bobcats were playing like 11 versus 10. Well, it kind of almost felt the opposite. Like every time that we handed the ball off, like we didn't have enough hats on hats, and there was always just one guy waiting in the gap, and like they were pretty sound tacklers, and he made the tackle. So I think a lot of it was just Albany scheming it up and just kind of treating us like a triple option, just playing gap assignment football. I think is kind of what they were doing to us, and it kind of plays out that their leading tackler, Josh Wynn, Mr. Dinosaur, had 19 tackles. I think the next guy had like 9, or maybe he had 17. But either way, he was almost double the next guy in tackles. So clearly, if your safety's got that many tackles there, and we're not throwing the ball a whole lot, he's crashing down, and they're using him in run support. So I think that was just, like you said, their entire game plan, selling out to stop the run, bringing down the safety help, staying gap assignment sound, and that really kind of presented some problem for the Bobcats. And like you said, no Tyrone Marshall to kind of soften the edges, and the middle just was not there for us.
Well, they weren't bringing a lot of pressure too, so they could sit in those gaps, and we couldn't exploit that.
No, that's kind of what it was. There's just always a guy just sitting there waiting, and made the tackle more often than not.
Well, really give Tucker Rovig some opportunities to make some plays over there. He just looked like the best version of himself. He had a season high 279 yards and 3 touchdowns, 80% completion rate. Tucker Rovig was a dude out on the field, and his ability to press the ball downfield really, really opened the game for us.
It was impressive to watch. He had such confidence in his receivers. Some of the throws were dimes. Some of them were more of a 50-50 ball, but the point is he gave his guys a chance to catch every single one of those, and his receivers really stepped up in a big way. Kevin Cassius, if you watch the broadcast, Kevin Cassius made some really good. He had one of the best games I've seen from him from a receiving standpoint, probably as a Bobcat. Lance McCutcheon finally breaks out and has a couple just stellar catches himself. It was a really impressive game from the passing attack, and a lot of that was the offensive line giving Rovig time to throw, and Rovig sitting there and having confidence to throw the ball downfield, and his guys stepped up for him. It was just a great effort for the passing game in general, and it all started with Tucker Rovig making some absolute great throws.
Kevin Cassius is so good at catching the overhead ball, the one that just, drops into his lap. He's so good at that. He's made that catch against the sideline a handful of times this season. It's just really, really impressive.
That's one of Rovig's better throws, is he's able to put enough air on those that they kind of drop straight down, like so the defender doesn't even have a chance to swat it. So he throws a good, whatever kind of pass you would call that. I don't know enough about football to know it, but yeah, the one where you just drop it in like that, he did really good at that.
My other favorite route that we run is the Travis Johnson just like button hook on the outside. We net like 10 yards every time we do it because they play off Travis Johnson because of his speed. And he always has like a 5-yard cushion. He just stops and Tucker Rovig just puts it on the money right there.
No, the timing is really, really good on that. That's like probably our best overall pass play is, he just like drives right at the DB and just stops. And, within a second of him stopping, turn around, or a second or two, the ball's there. And before the defenders even have a chance, that's probably, our best play. And the chemistry is good there and the timing's good and it's been working. I'm just, eventually that route's going to get jumped. We just got to be careful with it.
Well, I noticed we don't do many seam passes and we don't do many passes over the middle that are not, 5 to 10 yards down the field.
No,
like we'll hit a drag route across the, and there was a couple new passes I saw where, we hit some guys dragging across the middle, but like most of Tucker's throws are aided against the sideline.
It's true. Tucker has great arm strength to get it there. That's a long throw. So that one, I'm thinking of just Travis Johnson. He was like almost on the right hash and threw it all the way to the other side of the field. That's a long throw. That's like 30 yards in the air for like a 12-yard gain.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. I don't know. We just don't really have it in our arsenal to throw it the seams or over the middle, but that's just really not our MO, and it's not going to be anytime soon. Not this year.
On the flip side, think about the seams. That's one thing where I think the Montana State defense is kind of suspect.
Yeah. Did you see something from the Albany game where they exploited the seams?
Yeah, I did a couple times. A couple of the passes they did hit were on those seams, and the announcer was just kind of annoying. He kept talking about it. He's like, if the Montana State doesn't protect the seams, that's going to be a problem for them. I was like, man, that guy just keeps mentioning it. But he's got a point. All year long goes back to Sac State, man. They attack the seams on our defense. Maybe that is a weak spot. I can't complain much about our defense. We've been lights out, but that is something where we struggle a little bit.
It takes a really accurate quarterback, and the timing has to be really good on seam passes. So you'll see like a quarterback like Kevin Thompson or Dalton Snead or Jeff Undercuffler be able to hit those throws, but a quarterback like maybe Tucker Rovig or some of their quarterbacks maybe still in the playoffs yet, or that's a harder throw to make. Like I doubt Weber State's throwing the ball up the seam with Jake Constant's team. So it's a hard throw to make, and our next opponent, I'm not sure Austin Peay really has that in their playbook either, but that's definitely something that we have struggled with.
Well, I'm ready to move on to Austin Peay if you want to.
We do have a couple Golden Koozie questions pertaining to the game. One of them, Jim Lear, and then we should talk about this is an important thing. What is going on with our clock management? Well, Jim wants to know, calling a timeout after the first down at the goal line cost us a play and probably a touchdown. I know that you and I texted about that. We're like, oh, here we go again with the clock management that's going to cost us points. What are your thoughts on the clock management? What is going on?
Oh, man, it's just like, yeah, exactly. I texted you ago. Here's where I don't trust Jeff Choate. I still don't trust him when we have like 30 seconds or a minute left and we get down into the red zone. Like it is a crap show down there, man. Like I have no clue what they're doing. Why don't they spike the ball? Why don't we spike the ball? We haven't spiked. I mean, this seems like a logical thing. Stop the clock. Nope. And then we tried to usher in the kicking game. It's just like two games now. Was it the Cat Grizz that we tried to do that? I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think it may have been UCD, but yeah, it's been 2 of the last 3 games.
It was Davis, yeah. It was. I just don't know what Jeff Choate's doing.
We didn't get the kickoff in that one. Like the snap came late and it didn't count.
Yeah, spike the ball, stop the clock, get set.
I don't know how we got into like it was like 1st and goal or 1st and 10 from like the 15 or something like that. With 3 timeouts left, and somehow we burned them all consecutively and run out of timeouts. It was not good clock management. And I didn't understand. I think he mentioned after the first down, what we call the timeout. I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was one play. We ran it. It was successful. It was like, just get up to the line, run our play, or spike it. Like, we just casually called our timeouts, and then all of a sudden, like, oh no, we don't have any timeouts. It's not good, and it's eventually, if it continues, it's going to cost us a close game. We can't be doing this kind of stuff.
Kind of like a moot point on that. Afonso looked like he scored.
I've only seen like the final image of him reaching over the goal line. It's such inconclusive. Like we don't know if he rolled on his knee and before that. So, but it looked like it was a touchdown from every angle I've seen a photo of, but doesn't tell us what happened 0.5 seconds before the photo was taken.
Yeah, I mean, just back to the root of the question. I think we're all a little bit frustrated with Jeff Choate's clock management in crucial times, and so that's something he definitely needs to work upon.
That question is from Jim Lear on Twitter. Thanks for the question, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay. I don't think there's any other koozie questions pertaining to the game. Let's go ahead and move on. What do you think?
The Governors.
The Governors. What do you think? What do you think about Austin Peay?
Well,
first of all, do you have any information on the school? Did you do any research there?
I kind of looked a little bit to see where they're from. They're from somewhere in Tennessee. That's kind of a lame answer, but that's all I really know about Austin Peay. Apparently, their name comes from it's paying homage to one of their governor back in Tennessee. And what I do know about Austin Peay is in the last 4 games, they have outscored opponents 161-48. They are on just an absolute tear right now.
Yeah, it actually in the Austin Peay watch party thread on the Bobcat Nation, I was interacting with like the lone little Sac State fan there, and I was doing some brief research there, just look at the Sac State game, and like, Sac State's could be primed for an upset here because of that kind of stuff. Because Sac State or Austin Peay was just hot; they were just coming in red hot. Sac State was not hot; they had like lost their very first game in November to Weber State, so they came in and just took it to them. So yeah, they're hot right now, and that only reaffirmed, their hotness, if you will. Like it just kept the fire going, just destroying Sac State like that.
Well, Austin Peay finished number 1 in the Ohio Valley Conference. Second was SEMO, a team we played early on in our season. They played Southeastern Missouri as well, and they beat them 28-24. That was back on October 12th. So, I mean, you just kind of throw that one out the window.
No, and you can't make any sort of comparison to our SEMO game either because of the same reason. That was just so long ago.
Yeah, but since November 6th, that's when they started going on their tear. And to be outscoring opponents 161-48, I mean, that's pretty legit. In comparison, Montana State in the last 5 games has outscored our opponents 209-73. And we all know those 73 points, there's probably, a third of those to maybe even half of those that came in garbage time. So we're kind of on the same trajectory as Austin Peay. They're coming from Tennessee's on finals week on a Friday night. So, I mean, we got some things going for us, just advantage-wise of just logistics. But, man, we kind of feel like we're 2 similar teams.
Did you watch the Sacramento State game?
Here and there.
That's my only real, my only at all viewing of Austin Peay. And their offense was strikingly similar to ours. Like, didn't really know anyone else in the country was crazy enough to run so many different packages and formations and try and get so many different ball carriers in space like we do without being a triple option team. But here we are with kind of almost a little bit of a carbon copy of that kind of stuff. They ran some interesting plays. They had a guy like in the flat before the snap, he'd come run back and then he'd like take a couple steps back and then the guys would shift and he would take a snap out of Wildcat. So he would audible into the quarterback's Wildcat spot from starting out like a slot receiver position. So they do a lot of kind of stuff that we do. So it's going to be a very interesting matchup from that perspective.
Well, they're led by their senior quarterback, Javon Craig, number 3. He has over 3,000 yards on the season. And put that in comparison, that's 3 times as many as Tucker Rovick's had. He has 27 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. But that's the guy who stirs the drink for them.
He reminds me a lot of like a Chris Murray type guy.
Yeah.
Like the way he runs, like he'd go back there and he has that like real emphatic like planting of the foot and he's just gone. just puts his foot in the ground, and he's quick out the gate. He's got kind of tall, lanky frame. Obviously a little bit better passer, but surprisingly, he hadn't gone over like 80 yards all year, and all of a sudden he just ran all over Sac State. So I don't know if that's just something that they saw that they could exploit, but he's not. Clearly, he had the physical tools to do it, but he must be a pass first guy. So I'm curious to see how they're going to attack the Bobcat defense. But interesting about him, I was reading, he wasn't even like he's been an on and off starter his career. Like he lost his starting job and kind of won it back his senior year after like losing it out. It was like a sophomore or junior. So it's pretty interesting trajectory for him to stick around the program. And I think he might have even actually come in earlier this year when a quarterback was hurt, if I remember correctly. But either way, he's stuck it around and he's having a great senior year. So he's gonna be a handful.
Now, I think that Chris Murray comparison was spot on. That's exactly what I was thinking when I was watching him run around. But apparently he's a better passer than Chris Murray.
Yep.
To have 3,000 yards on the season is nothing to bat an eye at, for sure.
No, that's a couple hundred a game. Like his average game is like the best Chris Murray game.
Well, what do you think, Thorny? So you said that they run an offense that's very similar to ours, or at least in schematic wise. Is that good for Montana State, or is that going to be a challenge for us?
I think it's going to be a challenge. And I actually did catch that part of the press conference where Jeff Choate was like, now I kind of see how other teams feel, trying to prepare for all the different looks that they throw out. And I haven't spent so much time doing it. So just because we run it, like we have some familiarity with a similar system, but you don't game plan for it like you would in this. So I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be a huge advantage having run a similar thing. I think it's going to be a really hard thing to stop.
Yeah, I think you're probably exactly right on that. It's just going to be something we're going to have to be, we're going to have to have our eyes in their correct position, as Jeff Choate would like to say, when we're going to have to be gap sound and play our assignment sound football.
So a couple things here. I'm going to kind of recap what I saw in the Sac State game. That's decide one way or the other if it was Austin Peay or Sac State being terrible. Sac State was terrible tackling in that game. I don't know what happened to Sac State, but they couldn't tackle anyone. They were getting through arm tackles. They weren't gang tackling. That a lot of that is when you're on your heels, you play slow. We saw that happen to the Grizz. Like, yeah, that's a good tackling team, but they weren't against us because they're playing slow. They weren't quite sure what they were supposed to be. Eyes catching the wrong spot, and I think that's kind of what happened to Sac State. I do like our chances of tackling a lot better because I think we're an excellent tackling team this year. We have been pretty much since about the SEMO game. We started off a little sloppy, but we got a lot better as the year progressed. So that's one thing that I just saw. Like Sac State couldn't tackle anybody. The other thing that really stuck out is Kevin Thompson was off, and I don't think it was really he wasn't running for his life. He was sitting there in the pocket and just missing dudes, like just throwing 4 feet behind them on a slant pattern or throwing in the dirt. It was really interesting to see. I don't know what was up with Kevin Thompson, but I think there were some points to be had, some big plays to be had. Thompson just couldn't get it done, and it was really odd to see.
Question for you, Ryan. Do you think you would rather go play Sac again or Austin Peay at this moment?
Well, after watching that game, I'd obviously want to play Sac State, but that's not games like that aren't going to happen again. Like if we play the Grizz again, I don't expect that same outcome. So just because Sac State got steamrolled by Austin Peay doesn't mean that wouldn't happen to us. So, but I don't know. Exactly the scenario happened, I would like to happen because I'd rather be playing Austin Peay at home than going into Sacramento for sure.
That's a good point.
Hey, real quick thing about I did some stats. I was pretty curious about Kevin Thompson. He was throwing for 66% completion percentage and a passing efficiency of 148, about 2.7 touchdowns a game when you average it out. Before he got injured at Weber State, his next 3 games, Idaho, UC Davis, Austin Peay, he threw a combined 3 touchdowns. His completion percentage was 46, and his rating was 95.
Whew.
So I don't know what the heck happened to Kevin Thompson, but clearly the injury was more severe than it led on, and it just hindered him. So it wasn't just a Austin Peay thing. Like he hadn't been playing good for a couple weeks.
Yeah, you could kind of feel that too. They struggled with UC Davis. They just weren't the same team. I mean, they were on a tear in October, but Sac State didn't really. They weren't scaring me like they were in the middle of the
No.
season. Yeah.
Nope. And that's the big difference in being good in October versus being good in November. We've been on both sides of that now.
Gosh, yeah. Well, I like the way the Cats did it.
The other thing, and this bears out statistically, Austin Peay had a ton of penalties. Like, they don't look disciplined. They have lots of infraction, like procedural penalties, and their stats bear it out. I think they're like 100th or something in penalties against. So Bobcats are obviously very good at not getting penalties thrown. I think one of the tops of the Big Sky. So I think that's going to be a real big point of emphasis. And that bared out against Sac State, too. They had tons of penalties. I don't have the stats in front of me, but they had a lot of penalties against Sac State.
No, yeah. So, like, the Bobcats come out, and let's say we get an early lead against Austin Peay. I could see it becoming super chippy if that holds true. Now, Austin Peay doesn't have like a history of being good. In fact, they have a history of being really bad. At one point, they lost like 29 games in a row.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're burning hot right now. They kind of remind me of like a little firework going off in the air. And I think there's going to be a ceiling for them here soon. I'm just going to put it that way.
Okay, just to circle back to what I was looking it up while you were talking there. They had 9 penalties for 78 yards against Sac State. So, yeah, and I agree with your point. It could get chippy. Albany was a little chippy. I saw some complaints on the board about it. When I was rewatching the game, I definitely saw a couple things that made me go, why wasn't there a flag thrown there? But it could certainly, if this happens, I don't know if it's just the style the Bobcats play where we're just so physical and play to the whistle that we just start pissing people off and they just start retaliating. It'll be interesting to see that dynamic for sure.
What is the weight this game holds for Montana State in general?
It's huge. I mean, this will be our first trip to the semifinal since 84, right?
Oh, if we can win.
Well, I don't understand the question then.
Well, I mean, I guess the question is, what does this mean to Montana State? And I think you said it, Thorny. It's just that. It's like we haven't had this trip to the semifinals since 1984. This is a huge game for Montana State.
It'll be the first like legitimate playoff run I can think of. Yes, well, not that I can think of. Fact, the first playoff run since 84, when we have won 2 games in a row, starting in the second round and got into the semifinal. So it's everything. It's a huge game. It's a huge that it's in Bozeman. Like, how awesome is that as a 5 seed to be hosting another game here? It's huge for the team. It's huge for recruiting. I only wish that we got a spot on ESPN2 instead of ESPN3, but that's just kind of the draw of having commencement on Saturday and needing to change the game around. But it's huge. It's huge for the program.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Pretty hard not to. Of course, it's huge. It's huge for every team in this spot.
I think the Bobcats are playing with some just confidence right now. I just like our mojo of our team. We just seem tough and we seem confident and we just seem like we're the most excited team to play right now. And I that's just big stuff for us right now.
No, we've really been focused since whatever game was after the North Dakota game, but we haven't really had like a letdown quarter in the way that we have. We haven't had that that cascading comedy of errors. In fact, we've kind of forced teams into those errors that just like the blocked punt against Albany. That's just, we've had that kind of stuff go our way lately. And that's not a coincidence. That's practice. That's focus. That's hunger. That's everything you want. And I like where the team is mentally and physically ready to go.
And we're playing better without our best player.
Yep. I'm not sure when Troy Anderson will be back, if he will be back, but we already kind of hashed out in the last episode what it means to play without him. We've won 2 games convincingly without him, so I'm confident we can continue to win, which is just crazy to think about, but we're playing great football.
Sounds good, man. Hey, are you ready to move on, or do you want to wrap up some thoughts?
I didn't know if we wanted to mention any kind of players to keep an eye on. We already talked about the quarterback. The other guy I saw on tape that really jumped out to me was their wide receiver, DeAndre Wilson, I think, number 11. A little short, stocky, fast guy. He's tough to bring down. He's a load. So I'm going to be interesting to see how he does. And then they have a guy on the Buck Buchanan list on the defense with 7 interceptions on the year. That's huge stat for the FCS level in particular. Cordell Jackson, 5'11", only 163, but he is a ball hawk. So probably not as big a issue for a team like the Bobcats who don't throw the ball, but certainly a guy to keep an eye on.
Kind of sounds like a Jacque Allen.
Yeah, a little bit. I could see that. I don't think he's built quite the same way, but boy, Austin Peay just has some like short, squatty dudes on their D line. They have like a guy who's like 5'11", 320 or something.
Ooh.
And I don't remember what it was off the top of my head. The other guy's like 5'9", 270. So they just got some, and they're both really good players. Like the one guy, the 5'11" guy, in fact, I have it right here in front of me. Josephus Smith, I think his name was. I probably typed that down wrong, but maybe I didn't. It's 5'9", 285, but he's got 19 and a half tackles for loss and 7.5 sacks from his like defensive tackles position.
Jeez.
He's a playmaker. I was watching him, like number 44. He's got like that big shoulder pad that kind of goes up behind the head that makes you look even bigger than you are. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
So he's just like this just little bowling ball, just terrifying little man. It's pretty it'd be interesting. Our offensive line's going to have their hands full. They're an athletic, physical group, and they're short and kind of squatty, and so they can get good pad level on you. It's good to see how we play against them. I think we're going to have to attack the edges. I hope Tyrone Marshall is available.
Yeah, that guy, like, well, he just ghosted us last game. Where was he? Like, that was the weirdest thing about that game was like, where's Tyrone Marshall at? I think I saw him on the sideline, but like, it just made no sense to me whatsoever. Are we going to have
if it's some sort of plan to like make teams wonder, like, oh, okay, is he playing or is he not? Are they going to play this kind of football or not? Like, I don't know if it's that kind of strategy or if he's just hurt.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know, man. So
I don't know either.
We could have another game like where we're going to run for 200 yards, or maybe we're going to get back to what we're doing or where we're used to and have 400 yards. I don't know what's going to come. Maybe Tucker Rovig's going to lead us to a victory. One thing that we haven't had in a while is we haven't played a close game.
No, that's been since North Dakota.
Yeah. I wonder how the Cats will respond if we get into that.
That's a good question. We haven't been battle tested in that way for a while, but neither has Austin Peay.
All right, man.
All right. Yep. That's pretty much all I have to talk about Austin Peay, whose chant, yes, it is, let's go Peay. Had to say it. That's their web address is letsgop.com.
I had no clue what you're talking about right there. Like, did he just say that? Okay, he did. All right.
If you type in let's go P, make sure you're spelling it Peay if you're going to go letsgop.com, because if you don't spell it that way, you're probably going to get a whole different website you don't want a part of.
I had no clue their mascot was the Governors. So when I was watching the game, I was like, they got like the old white guy with the top hat on on their helmet. I was like, wait, what are these guys, like the Fighting Whiteys or something? What's going on? Like,
kind of like Mr. Monopoly, really.
Yeah.
Got the monocle.
The old rich white dudes on the helmets. There you go. That's good. That's a good mascot.
It's a whole different world down in Tennessee.
All right, man. Hey, so let's recap our bold predictions from last week. You came in strong, saying we were going to have 4 sacks. Nailed it.
Yeah.
Right on. Again, I sucked it up again with the pick 6. We still haven't had a pick 6. I'm going to stop picking the pick 6. And so there's, you were right. I was wrong. Thorny, what's your bold prediction for this week?
First of all, by not picking the pick 6 finally, that means you're probably going to will the team into a pick 6. So I like your strategy there.
Yes.
My bold prediction is that the Bobcats score more than 38 points.
Ooh. All right. I think Tucker Rovig's going to pass for 3 touchdowns.
So you think we're going to have to go to the air some more?
Yep. For sure.
I like that. I go with that. I'm going to have to bump mine up to 41 because on 38 it's not super bold. But, this getting into the, teams should be a lot better now at this, the quarterfinal. 38 points should be a lot, but I'll say, yeah, score more than 41. We'll score 42 or greater.
Okay. I just wrote those down.
Kind of steamrolling teams right now, offensively, defensively. How good was Coy Steele getting us in good field position? Just want to go back to that. That was crazy. He had such good returns in that game.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Our special teams looked amazing, except for the missed kick. But yeah, Coy Steele was awesome.
So that having good field positions definitely gets you in position to score more points, and I hope that continues with the good special teams play against Austin Peay.
For sure. You ready for some buy or sell?
Let's do it.
All right, Thorny, you're on the hot seat. Number 1, buy or sell. The crowd will be greater than 10,000.
Oh, I'm gonna buy it, but it's not gonna be much bigger. I'm afraid. I'm nervous about it.
Okay. Number 2, buy or sell. This is the best Bobcat team I have ever seen.
You go first on that one. Okay.
Well, you're putting me in a position I don't know what to do. No, I can't go first. It's your buy or sell.
Fine. I will sell it. I want to say that those early 2000s Lule teams were probably overall better, just as a shorter playoff field back then, so they didn't have good success on the road. No. Yep. I'm gonna sell it. They're not quite the best yet.
Okay.
They
Number
win
3.
this game, they very well might be, though.
Number 3, the depth is the number 1 factor in MSU's late season success.
You give me such hard questions on these.
That was from Shane Driscoll. Thanks, Shane.
I will buy that. It's a huge part of it for sure. I don't know if it's the number 1 factor, but I can't think of any other bigger number 1 factor, so I will buy it.
Number 4, you're going to scoff at this one. I know you are. Buy or sell, the Grizz fan pod.
If you're a Grizz fan, buy it. If you're not, sell it. Simple as that.
So
I'm
you're
not gonna lie,
selling.
they're an entertaining bunch to listen to, but I'm not listening to any podcast that isn't about like a subject I'm passionate about, or even probably any subject at all, period, for like 2 hours. So
2 hours is on the short side, man.
yeah, that's their quick episodes. That's their brief episodes. But yeah, that's a little too long in the tooth for me. So I guess overall, as a Bobcat fan and not a fan of 3-hour podcasts, I'm selling it.
Those guys wanted a golden koozie back in the day. Not going to happen. All right, last one. Let's see. How do I want to phrase this? Okay. Buy or sell. A win this weekend is the next step MSU needs.
I will buy that. That puts us into the quarterfinals. The first time we've been there, or sorry, semifinals, right? It's the semifinals. So yeah, absolutely the next step for sure.
All right, Thorny, you're off the hot seat, buddy. Well done. Fully, buy or sell. The crowd will be greater than 10 grand. I'm predicting it's going to be 12 to 13. It's like the last day of school. Am I right on that?
What? Sorry, I was reading a golden koozie question.
Oh, okay. Is it the game on the last day of the semester?
I have no idea.
I think it is. And I'm pretty sure it is. And that's going to hurt attendance pretty bad, specifically with the students. And so I'm guessing we're going to have right around 13 grand or 12 to 13.
Hope you're right.
Yeah. They'll be loud, though. Go Bobcats. Number 2, buy or sell. This is the best Bobcat team I've seen. Man, you really made me think with those Lule teams. I mean, Lule was so dynamic, and we had such good defense.
Those defenses.
Ooh. But why didn't we do more?
Because we didn't have any good running backs there once Ryan Johnson graduated.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. I'm going to say overall, I think we have a better offensive line right now. I think our defensive line is just as good. Back then, I think we had bigger names. Back in the early 2000s, you had obviously Kenayon, Travis Lule. I mean, you can't overlook those type of people. Roger Cooper. I mean, there's some players.
Adam Cordero.
Yeah, it's just generational players, right? But I think overall, just in general, overall, from position to position, I think we're just stronger. So yeah, I'm going to say this is the best Bobcat team I've ever seen. Gosh, I don't know, man. I'm crossing my fingers.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, that is a tough one. I think you're exactly right, Thorny. If we win this Saturday, I would feel much more confident on that. But it's like a 51-49 kind of push right there. I'm going to still say, yeah. All right. I'm sorry, Travis. I love you, man. You know. Okay, moving on. I got to move on for that one. That's a sticky one for me. Okay, number 3, buy or sell. Depth is the number 1 factor in MSU's late season success. We touched on this last week. I think for sure our depth has been a huge reason why we are where we are. I mean, Jeff Choate talked about today. We have guys practicing right now who have been hurt all season. Ty Okada. Just look at Ty Okada. Started his first game, what? Cat Grizz? I mean, the guy's just
I think so.
like that guy's exciting to watch. He's such a good open field tackler. Not only that, he has like a little bit of just dog in him. He trash talks a little bit. He just got a little bit of swag out there. I just like him, man. So I think, yeah, our depth, and these guys who've been getting playing because of people being hurt, and all of a sudden, we just got guys just rolling. It's good. So yeah, nice job, Shane. Thanks for the question. Number 4, the Grizz fan pod. I'm gonna have to sell. I think those guys are probably pretty nice dudes. The only Grizz fan pod I actually listened to was on the Cat Grizz recap. They seem okay. Having 3 guys talk around a microphone in the background with little kids on their, podcast. It's okay. I can get it, but like 3 hours, 2 hours, that's just too much. I don't want to listen to 3 guys, talk about the Grizzlies for that long. So yeah, I mean, just as a Cat fan, I'm gonna sell it, but in general, I'm just gonna sell.
I'm jealous they do get to do it in person though.
Yeah, that would be fun. I mean, do you think the dynamic between us would be different if we just got to sit in the same room and do this?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting thing to think
I'm staring
about.
at the clutter in my garage right now. So it'd be much different if I was actually talking to a person.
Yeah, I bet you it'd be a little bit easier to have a conversation. So we'll see.
Hey, now, what's that mean?
Just saying, Thorny. All right.
Next
5.
question.
Okay. Last one. Buy or sell fully. A win this weekend is the next step MSU needs. Totally. We've been to this place before. We've won one playoff game. It's time to make a run. I think we were talking about this early season back in August. What's going to define a good season for the Cats? And both you and I believe said a playoff run. Well, you can't just win one in the playoffs. You need to make a run. It starts on Friday. So I'm going to buy that. That's it.
Nice. Yep. Those are good questions. They're always hard for me because I don't have any time to prepare for them, but those were good. Made me think every one of them.
Well, thank you.
All right. Want to move into some Golden Koozie questions?
I guess so, man. Let's get us out of here.
All right. Let's, we got a few here we got to get through. Our buddy Pete Burfering.
Pete.
Is it Burfering or Burfing? You typed it in here.
I'm pretty sure it's Burfing.
Okay. Burfing. Sorry, Pete. He asked us who is the unsung hero on the team that allowed us to get into the playoffs and make this run. His answer is Logan Jones. What's your thought there?
It's hard to dispute Logan Jones. It really is. I'm going to have to go with Tucker Rovig, though. He would be another one. There's 2 players that come to mind, Tucker Rovig and then Amandre Williams. Both are just playing above their pay grade right now, in my opinion.
I'd have to go with Logan Jones just because with all the injuries to Troy and Afonso, like I have to agree completely with Pete on this one. Like he single-handedly won the game against Western Illinois, which was just a sloppy, ugly game. But he had 188 rushing yards or something in that game. He had a breakout game, and he's been hurt himself too. The other guy I could throw in the conversation is just RJ Fitzgerald, who's just been a blocking machine for any running back, just demolishing people. So I would put him there, but I think I'd have to pick Logan Jones.
RJ Fitzgerald just loves he looks like he just loves blocking. Like that guy he's just so fierce out there. It is so fun to watch.
Man, once he gets his mitts on you, it's that's it.
He's not the biggest dude, but he's fierce. Holy cow.
No, he's a warrior for sure.
All right. Nice job, Pete. Thanks for it, buddy. You're not winning, though. You already have a golden koozie.
Alec Nice on Twitter. Has he won one? He's asked some.
Ooh. Have I sent one to Alec? I don't think I have.
I don't think so. He had a good question. He said MSU has forced a turnover in 23 straight games, which is really interesting stat. And I heard that on the Root Sports broadcast on the Cat Grizz game, but it's really hard to find stats on that kind of stuff. But his question is, what is your best guess as to when that streak will end? at Fargo, at Utah, which would be next year, or or like a surprise team like Wagner, who we played, who didn't turn the ball over at all?
God, that's a weird question. Um,
There's really there's no rhyme or reason to it. I kind of tend to agree that it's just going to be some team that we just some like a lower level team or whatever we have on the docket next year, where it's just we're gonna beat the snot out of them without having them have to turn the ball over. It'll be a weird
yeah,
game, I think.
yeah, I'll go with that.
He did also ask to see what the other teams' streaks were. Like I said, it's extremely hard to find that information. I did find an article from August that Indiana had a current FBS best 19 straight games with the turnovers. So 23 has got to be pretty damn good for any level of football. So I think it's pretty impressive.
It's weird that we haven't really heard about it. It just seems like it's just like this kind of random stat.
Yeah, like the first time I'd really seen it, like I said, was Root Sports brought it up against the Cat Grizz game. I was like, oh, that's pretty sweet. But yeah, it doesn't come up that often. I don't know if it's in the MSU notes that are released. I don't always read through those. That's where that kind of stuff lives a lot of times. So maybe I need to look in there more often.
All right, Alec, thanks for the question, buddy.
Montana Parlay, our buddy over at the Montana Mint, the gambling expert, Montana Parlay, he said, should Bobcat Nation be concerned that he's so confident that MSU wins on Friday and can't summon the energy narrative to reverse the jinx? It's a funny question. He's confident. He says, is that a good or a bad thing? What do you think?
I don't think it's a bad thing to be confident. You and I are superstitious, like to the nines, and so we hardly make any predictions about anything. At least I avoid it. So, but no, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think I saw a line MSU opens as a 5 or 7 point favorite. So I'm pretty confident as well.
To the superstitious thing, real quick before I actually give my answer, I've been wearing my same Bobcats sweatshirt on Friday for the last, I don't know, 4 or 5, 6 weeks, somewhere in that range. And there was a miscommunication on Friday. Basically, I washed all my clothes, forgot to dry them. So I had to wear my business slacks and my nice attire when I normally wear jeans to work. So I couldn't just very well wear my Nike Bobcat sweater on a Friday with my slacks. But I've been wearing this, so I was pretty concerned about it. But luckily, I had an opportunity to wear it later that night. So I put it on and wore it, and it salvaged us. we still beat Albany, but that's just the level of superstition that you and I go to.
Oh yeah, I mean, Thorny, remember when you were in town, you're like, why aren't you wearing any Bobcat gear? And I told you, I said after North Dakota, we had, what was the game next after North Dakota? Anyways, I didn't wear Bobcat gear that day. I was like, well, we won. I haven't worn Bobcat gear on game day since.
We got to keep winning, man. I'm here drinking a smoothie because I like the name of the smoothie. All right. It's dedication here.
No, it goes even further for me. I have 2 different wedding rings. I have one of those, rubber wedding rings. You know what I'm talking about? The flexi ones.
Yeah.
And, I've been wearing that on Saturdays. Again, I haven't stopped wearing it since we started winning. So, I mean, all these little things that you put in your mind that you're like, okay, this is making a difference. Clearly doesn't, but it makes a difference.
It's funny. Sports are funny like that. But to actually answer the question, I texted you. I think what I said to you in the text on this last game rings true. You were like, all right, and this is where the Bobcats go 3-and-out or whatever. And I was like, Foley, this isn't the Bobcats of old, man. We got to break through that mindset, that same old Bobcats. We're going to make some little slip up here. This is the new Bobcats. This is Bobcats 2.0. This is Jeff Choate Bobcats. We need to be confident. We don't need to always have that sneaking suspicion in our head that something's going to go wrong. So Montana Parlay, you absolutely be confident the Bobcats will win. You do it, buddy.
Nice job, Parlay.
Okay, I think we have
You're
one
right,
last
man.
question.
They aren't the same Bobcats. This is a totally different feeling from the old Bobcats. But we just had so many years of it, so it's just It's just taking a little while to get that old feeling
Mhm.
off the shoulder. So, but
I think
yeah,
what really just changed my mindset was that finally that beat down of the Grizz, who clearly are a good football team. They just beat a team by like 50 in the playoffs. We beat them 48-14, man. This isn't this isn't like the Rob Ash era, man. This is a new era. We're gonna do it. We're gonna win this game.
hey, Thorny, we do have a Golden Koozie question from Minnesota Cat Gal. We got two of them. She first asked us, what do you think has been the biggest change that took our defense from good to great this season?
I think it really I at one point I thought it was Troy just really turning it on, but I also obviously he hasn't been playing, so that's really not it anymore. Maybe he's the one who kind of elevated him and they've just been able to maintain that play. Josh Hill's reemergence has been a huge difference. Josh Hill is just a different player out there. I don't care about his size. He is like the best instinctive linebacker on the team, if not even in the whole league. He's just a difference maker. But I think a lot of it is just that depth we were talking about. We've had so many different guys subbing in, rotating in here and there that every single one of the guys who plays, who can play, who's the backup, has meaningful snaps and reps and experience, and it's all starting to come together.
On top of that, I think it's just the thing between the ears, man. It's just confidence. Like the Cats are just playing with a lot of confidence right now. So that's a huge part of it to me.
And I would be remiss if we didn't mention like Kane Ione kind of learning on the job his first year as defensive coordinator, just getting better and better every game.
On the board, Libby Cat had talked about that our offense is not as predictable, and so we're not putting the defense in kind of a crunch position all the time. I mean, there was a while there, specifically in October, where we were going 3-and-out quite a bit, so that could have a part to do with it. But if you look at our answer, I think it's probably everything we just talked about.
Yeah, pretty hard to pinpoint one exact thing, but yeah, it's definitely a noticeable improvement since even the North Dakota game included, just since the Sac State loss, really.
Minnesota Cat Gal did have a second question, and it's a pretty good one. She asked us, what is the oldest piece of cat gear that either you have?
Man, that's a tough one. I've really had to think about that. I can't. I've had so many different hats and shirts that I've had to throw away or got smashed or stomped or lost. Uh, I have a football helmet shaped beanie I probably got in like 2005. I also have this ugly V-neck long sleeve shirt that I don't really wear anymore because I I think it's bad luck. It's funny. It's in my stored away. That might be my oldest. I bought it like at Kmart in Bozeman, like 2004 ish. But that's
Wait,
as
you
far as
have
I can remember.
you
Anything
have
that's
a male V-neck, Bobcat V-neck?
yeah, it's like a long sleeve V-neck thing.
What? Okay.
I think we've already
I think I
established
need to see a
that.
picture of this.
I think we've already established that you're not here to talk fashion.
I need to see a picture of this.
I always have to wear a white T-shirt under it because I don't want everyone seeing all that. So anyway, I don't think. Yeah, that's the longest surviving things I can think of. That beanie and that shirt. Everything else that I've had before that is just long gone. So who knows? You seem to have a very specific one.
Well, I do. I was just thinking back how many like Bobcat things just come like just like have recycled in my life. The very first Bobcat thing I ever owned was I had these pair of gloves that had like, kind of like stretchy gloves. They were the old blue. I mean, I got them when I was in like 7th or 8th grade. A girl who she was my very first girlfriend. I'm not going to name her name, but her brother played for the Cats. And I was like, she had these pair of mittens, had these mittens. And I was like, man, those are awesome. She's like, yeah, I'll get you a pair. I was like, sweet. So she brought me this pair of gloves. They were my favorite Bobcat possession I ever had. They had like, they had the claws. When you opened up your hand, you could see like the Bobcat claws. And then on the backside and like the rubber stuff that was printed on, they said MSU. They were pretty sweet. Don't have those anymore, but that would have been my oldest thing. But the oldest thing I have right now is a pair of sweats from my sister bought for me like many Christmases ago. They say MSU on them, just in the upper left-hand part. They're like my nighttime pajamas, essentially. So yeah, I think that's got to be the oldest thing I'm rocking that has MSU on it.
Nice. That was a fun question. Just trying to think of all the gear I've owned, I've lost. Like, what is the oldest? Clearly, I need more Bobcat gear. I just don't have enough. I think that's really where it comes down to over here.
Yeah. Nice job, Minnesota Cat Gal.
Well, who do you want to pick as our golden koozie question winner, which we never ever discussed before the show, which leads to awkward conversation about trying to figure out who we should pick?
Yes, my vote would be for. It's got to be for the Cat Gal, Minnesota Cat Gal. I think that oldest piece of cat gear was the one that put her over the edge. I thought Alec had a really good question, and the question early on from can't remember his name, but the first one we answered, that was a good one as well. So, but I'm gonna go Minnesota.
Yep, I kind of agree with that. I figured that's why we were kind of saving it for last. Kind of, I think we'll want this one. That was a fun question. Just making me think about all the stuff. So yeah, definitely a trip down memory lane. So congratulations. Was it Minnesota Cat?
Minnesota right? Cat Gal.
Woo!
Woo! Golden Koozie!
It makes me laugh every time we just start clapping.
Oh, I know. It's just
silly.
Fun.
It's fun.
Well, Thorny, it's about that time, buddy.
Yep, that was we've gone on long enough, but we had a lot of questions to go through. That's always fun. I hope it's fun to listen to. Let's get out of here. You can follow us on Twitter, RRCatcast. Email us at rrcatcast@gmail.com. If you don't have Twitter, don't want to interact with us on Twitter, whatever. BobcatNation.com, recurring thread there for both the Golden Koozie and where I post the releases, if you will, when we release an episode. And other than that, man, just excited to be talking Bobcat football still here in the second weekend, going on the second week in December. It's exciting.
Whew, man.
It's this new era. I hope it continues. So let's end it with Go Cats.
Go Cats.